So I want the focus to be this beautiful cover, because that is a dashing, debonair cover right there. Anyway, let's read about the Cowboy Strong. One fake engagement brings a real second chance at love. Elena Carey can outrope, outride, and challenge even the best Texas cowboy. But does she have one soft spot, and his name is Paxton Callahan. With Pax back in town, Elena's old feelings have returned with a vengeance, but she's barely had time to process her attraction for the hunky cowboy before her father falls ill. All he wants is for her to marry and settle down before he passes away, and Elena isn't about to break a dying man's heart. Paxton Callahan has been in love with Elena since forever. Now that he's living right next door, the electricity between them is about to set the whole Texas panhandle on fire. When Elena presents him with a crazy proposal to pretend to be her fiancé so her father can die in peace, Paxton can't refuse. But as the Fox wedding day draws near, Alana and Paxton must decide whether to come clean about their charade or finally admit their love is real deal. Okay, now, as you can see, there's tons of paper clips, tons of moments that I want to share with you. So, let's start at the first, shall we? All I want is an unconditional, complete love that will last forever. And this book to not close on me. Okay, here we go. And how do you know when you got it? Elena asked. My heart will tell me, Pax answered. Grandpa told me that. He knew right here. He tapped his chest. When he found the right woman, I'm depending on the same feeling to hit me. I'd like something a whole lot more concrete. Like the name of my forever soulmate to be written in the stars, or maybe for a halo to appear over his head when we're sitting beside each other in a church, she said. That's not asking for much, he chuckled, but his tone suggested the opposite. I don't think so. She laid her head on his shoulder. As my friend, I believe you could arrange that for me, right? Happy, happy birthday, my dear friend. Pax kissed the top of her head. Anything for you, darling. Aw, what a gentleman. Okay, moving forward. If we could just, clone Paxton. He's just sexy, strong, and wonderful. And Elena's too blonde to realize it. The only thing Elena Carey's father ever wanted was to live long enough to see his daughter, Elena, get married and settle down. Elena was only 29 years old, so she had plenty of time to make her daddy a happy man. Right up until she came in at noon on a bright sunny day in the middle of the week and found him sitting at the kitchen in his Sunday jeans and shirt. Where have you been all dressed up? She rolled her sleeves up of her chambray work shirt to her elbows and washed her hands at the kitchen sink. Been to Amarillo. His voice sounded like it was about to crack. Matt Carey was an old-school ranching cowboy. His kind were tough as nails as they held their emotions inside their hearts. They didn't cry or whine about anything. He was Elena's rock and had been her only parent since her mother's death when she was a girl. He was all the family she had left, no siblings, no grandparents, and only a handful of cousins that were scattered from coast to coast. He was also her mentor. He taught her everything about how to operate a ranch from the ground up. She heard the sadness in his voice before, and had seen him worry. But she never seen such a bewildered expression on his face. You didn't tell me about a cattlemen's meeting. She opened the refrigerator and got out some cold cuts to make sandwiches. Leave that and come sit down. He used his boot to slide a chair out from the table. I didn't go to Amarillo for a cattlemen's meeting. I went to talk to a doctor. Elena felt as if someone had dropped a chunk of ice down the back of her shirt. Why did you go all the way up to there? Dr. Wilson has taken care of us forever. I haven't been feeling too good lately, or so Doc Wilson sent me to a specialist for some tests. Didn't want to worry you until the results came back, Matt said. Never was any good at beating around the bush, so I'm just going to spit it out. I've got stage 4 cancer and an inoperable tumor in my brain. They told me it's very aggressive, and even if they managed to take it out, I might live 6 months. but there's a high probability I'd live in a coma that whole time. Elena's chest tightened, her breath came in short gasps, and words wouldn't form in her mouth. Matt Carey was a big, strong man. He couldn't have cancer. What did stage 4 mean anyway? Matt reached out and took both her hands in his. If it continues to grow the way it's been, I've got about 6 weeks. Oh, Daddy, what? A sob caught in her chest. Her mind couldn't begin to process the words he had said. Her heart seemed to understand better, and tightened into a ball of pain in her chest. Her hands shook, and for a few seconds she thought she might faint. That is page 1, 2, and 3. Promise me that you'll let me do as much as I'm able not to mollycoddle me in the time I've got left. Matt squeezed both her hands. I want to go out with my boots on, not in a hospital gown, and with no dignity. Promise me that much. Let me do what I can on my own terms as long as I can. I'll do whatever you want, Daddy, she said, tears streaming down her face, but her voice caught, and the heaviness in her chest felt as the rocks had been piled on top of her heart. He stood up, rounding the end of the table, and gathered her into his arms. His warm tears mingled with hers. I hate this for you, sugar. On one hand, I want to go with your mother, and on the other, I can't bear to leave you. Daddy, isn't there anything? She dried her eyes and straightened her back, tried to get her composure. Her father needed her to be strong, and she couldn't do it. She sobbed until the front of his shirt was wet, and she had hiccuped. Honey, think of it this way, Matt said as he took a step back from her. If I had a heart attack or a stroke and dropped out in the barn, you would have no forewarning. The way it is, we've got 6 weeks. The doctor says the last couple of weeks I'll sleep a lot more than the one time when I take a nap. I'll take that final step from earth to eternity. He went to the bar and started making sandwiches. We're going to live each day to the fullest. Now let's have some dinner and get back out there in that hayfield. I'll drive the truck, and the kids who got hired for the summer can help throw the bales. He didn't have to say the words. She heard them often enough, and they echoed through her heart and her mind. If I can live long enough to know that Elena is settled down with a good man, I'll be happy to go on to heaven with my sweet Joy. The fact that he said those words so often in the past year made her wonder if somehow in his subconscious he'd known that his time was limited and he'd soon be in eternity with his beloved wife. I've had a good life, and my only regret is that I can't walk you down the aisle at your wedding. I'd like to leave this world knowing that you've got a partner in your life like I had with your mama. You're a strong woman, Elena, but I rest a lot easier knowing that someone was beside you to share in your joys and have in your sorrows. What he said wasn't anything new. The same thing had come up often in the past, more so this last year. She figured it was because she was getting closer to the 30-year age mark. Elena couldn't snap her fingers and give him more than 6 weeks to live. She couldn't wish away the tumor anyway, or even make it less serious so the doctors could remove it. She couldn't pull a boyfriend out of her cowboy hat and plan a wedding so he could walk her down the aisle. Or could she? The only trouble with the plan that she popped into her head was that it would involve a huge lie. Still, it would make her father rest easy, and he'd never have to know she hadn't told him the truth. No, she told herself, I need to spend every waking minute with my daddy, and Daddy would be so disappointed in me if he found out. The little devil in her head kept showing her smiling, happy pictures of her father face as he walked her down the aisle and left her in the care of a loving man. I don't need a man to care for me, she argued. No, but think of how happy it will make your dad, the pesky voice whispered. There was only one man who might be willing to say yes to such a wild plan. Paxton Callahan. Her father liked him as a man and a cowboy, but Pax had a wild reputation. Scenarios played through her head one after another until she couldn't think about anything else. She dried her tears, took a deep breath, and pushed back her chair. She got out a jar of pickles from the refrigerator and set out a banana cream pie she'd just made the day before. She draped her arm around her father's shoulder. They did seem a little bit bonier than they had been. Why hadn't she noticed that he was losing weight? In her mind, she's thinking, because you see him as a big, strong cowboy. He's always been. The voice in her head was definitely her mother's that time. Make him happy, Elena. Don't let him leave with a single worry. She hugged him a little tighter, and then she sat down in her chair. Have you gotten a second opinion? Don't need one, her father said. I trust our doctor and the team that took care of me in Amarillo. Besides, I can feel it. Elena took a deep breath. I have something to say, and you might not like it. Her father was going to have his wish, and by damn, Paxton had better agree or else. It's not all bad news, is it? All the color had left his face. Elena stood up, crossed the kitchen, picked up a coffee pot and 2 mugs. That gave her another minute to put up into the hardest words that would ever come out of her mouth. It all depends on how you look at it, I guess. But it doesn't have anything to do with my health. She set the mugs on the table, filled them, and then returned the pot. That was page 4, 5. Here's 6 and 7. All right, then. His blue eyes stared right into her brown ones. She sat back down, took a deep breath, and said, Daddy, don't get mad, but I've been dating Paxton Callahan since he came home a few months ago. We've both got tired of the way we were running from the attraction we've kind of had for each other all these years, and well, she let the sentence trail off. Why would I be mad? Matt asked. Paxton and I get along fine. Well, he and his brother were pretty wild before Granny and Iris turned the ranch over to him. She was amazed that she could talk rationally about anything after that emotional bomb her dad had dropped on her. But she knew she had to stay strong to pull this off. She had to be strong for her father. I wasn't a saint either until I married your mother. Matt smiled for the first time. So how serious is this relationship? Very serious. She stood up and got the chips from the cabinet to keep from meeting her father's gaze. We've kept it secret because you know people in Daisy are with their gossiping and spreading rumors. They've had me pregnant and married by the end of the summer. I wouldn't mind that one bit. I could walk you down the aisle, and to know that I have a grandchild on the way would be the icing on the cake. Matt's tone got lighter with every word. Daddy, Elena rolled her eyes. How could they keep talking about anything that was going to happen and what needed to be done the next 6 weeks? There was all kind of legal stuff to take care of, she thought. They never discussed things like funerals, and the last word put a lump on the size of the grapefruit in her throat. Don't take that tone with me, Matt chuckled. I'm telling the truth. If y'all are very serious, like you say, then you could move things along a little faster, couldn't you? How can you laugh when? Tears flooded her cheeks again. He handed her a napkin. We'll talk about serious things like my whale ranch and the burial another night. Right now, I want to feel alive and not think about that end. I don't mind checking out of this life, but I sure hate to leave you alone. You won't. She took a deep breath and forged ahead. Pax proposed to me a week ago, and we planned to elope to Las Vegas this summer, but if walking me down the aisle will make you happy, then we'll have a wedding night right here in Daisy. How about we have a small family-only type ceremony at the church? She glanced at the calendar on the wall at the back to the sink. Does June 6th sound good? That gives us a month. That's the day that me and your mama got married. Matt's eyes welled up, and he took the napkin from her. I can't think of a better going-away present. I don't see a ring on your hand. Didn't he give you one? Don't talk about going away. She wiped her new tears on her shirt sleeve. We were going to pick out a ring this weekend. All right, then, Matt said. I'd love you if you would use your mama's engagement ring. It's in the safe. I'll get it out for you right now. And, honey, the next month we're going to focus on your wedding. Your mama made me promise that you would have a wedding to remember, and I'll see that you do. This shouldn't be a little family affair at the ranch. We're going to have a big event that folks will talk about for years and years. Oh boy, how was Elena going to convince Paxton Callahan that they were getting married in a month when they hadn't even been dating? That's page 6, 7, and 8. Page 9. She went to go talk to Paxton. Hey, Pax. He'd know that husky, sultry voice anywhere. He glanced up to find Elena Carey not 2 feet from him. Like he'd been doing since high school, he paused to take in her beauty, blonde hair, big brown eyes, and legs that seemed to go on forever. She was so tall, and she looked at him right in the eye, and he was over 6 feet. But even more awe-inspiring was her attitude. She could outride, outranch, and outdance every cowboy in Texas Panhandle, and she could most likely outdrink all of them, too. That was page 8, 9, and here's 10. Truth be told, she intimidated the hell out of him, and yet her presence was like a magnet at the same time. But the pain and misery in her normally sparkling eyes brought him up short. Elena, what's wrong? It's Daddy. She could barely get out the words before she started sobbing, as if her heart was broken. Nothing ever rattled Elena, and he never heard her voice crack like that. What happened? Paxton stepped forward and wrapped his arms around her, coaxing her head to his shoulder. Let it all out, and tell me what I can do to help. The doctor said he's got cancer and he's only got 6 weeks to live. Oh, sweetie, the soothing words came so naturally to Pax. He knew Elena wasn't the type who needed to be coddled, but he hated seeing her so upset. He doesn't want anyone to know, but another round of weeping began. I have to talk to you before the whole town finds out. I won't tell a soul, he promised, and I'm glad you came to me. You can't carry around something this big and this sad all on your own. Elena pulled back and wiped at her eyes with her sleeve. I'm sorry for getting so emotional on you. She took a step back and sat down on the nearest bale of hay. Hey, that's what friends are for. When is he starting treatments? Do you need me to take him to the doctor to help you out at the ranch? Tell me what to do. No treatment, she hiccuped. It's an inoperable brain tumor, and Daddy says he wants to die with dignity. Elena, I am so sorry. Pax blinked back tears of his own. It was hard to imagine that strapping man he'd known his whole life wouldn't be with them much longer. Please know that I'm here for you and Matt. I'd do anything for you at all. I'd do anything for y'all. She took a deep breath, and he could tell she was fighting to get the words past the lump in her throat. Daddy has said, her lip quivered, and she took another second to compose herself, so many times that he wants to live to see me settle down and married, and his biggest wish is that he gets to walk me down the aisle someday. Pax gave Elena a bittersweet smile. I've heard Matt say those very words several times myself. I want his wish to come true, Pax. She took another deep breath and began to talk very fast, as if she had to get those words out in a hurry. I told him that we'd been dating ever since you came back to Daisy and that we've been planning to elope sometime over the summer. So you can either fake break up with me right now and I can go home and tell him the sad news, or you can go along with my story, and I said we'd planned to get married on June 6th in a small family ceremony at the church here in Daisy. It'll be a small thing, and she sniffled, I can't even say the word, when he's with Mama in heaven, we'll have it all annulled. Whoa! Pax threw up both palms defensively. You did what? He couldn't wrap his mind around what she had asked of him. They'd been neighbors and friends their whole lives. They attended the same small rural school, the same church, and there was no doubt that there'd been sparks between them. But to say he would marry her, sweet Jesus in heaven! You want me to pretend that we're engaged to lie to a dying man? But it will make my daddy so happy in his last days, she said, and you can't tell anyone that it's all fake. Not even Maverick, because we have to make Daddy truly believe it. He'd be devastated if he knew that I made this all up. Please, Pax, it's not for very long. Her big brown eyes shimmered with tears. Page 10, 11, and 12. He couldn't say yes to such a crazy idea, but then he couldn't very well say no. Now either. Could he? God, he hated to see a woman cry. If he had agreed to what she was asking, he'd be a married man in a month. I know it's a lot to ask, Elena said, and I shouldn't have told him that we were dating until I asked you if you were willing to go along with it. Pax took her hand in his and tapped the ring finger. I wouldn't be the kind of cowboy who didn't even buy you a ring. I've got Mama's engagement ring, she said. That way you're not even out any money on this deal. All right, Pax said before he lost his courage. I'll do it. She threw her arms around him and said one more thing, and that's a big one. Would you please ask Daddy for my hand in marriage? He's old-fashioned, and Pax liked the feeling of her body pressed against his chest. Of course, he whispered. I hope he don't see right through the lie. He'll be so happy that he'll never even know. Elena hugged him even tighter, then moved back. Thank you, Pax, from the bottom of my heart and soul. I thank you. It'll mean a lot of pretending, but he leaned over and kissed her on the cheek. I'll get cleaned up and go talk to your dad this afternoon. And please put that ring on your finger, Pax said. If we're going to do this, let's make it believable for Matt's sake. She pulled a beautiful diamond ring from her pocket and handed it to him. It's only pretend, he told himself as he took the ring from her, and I'd do anything for Matt. If we're going to do this, then let's make it look as real as possible. He said. He got down on one knee. Elena Joy Carey, will you marry me? This might be the right way to propose to a woman, down on one knee with a ring in hand, but Pax had always figured when he popped the question to a woman, it would be more romantic than a place in the barn. In his mind, he'd be dressed up in his Sunday finery. Everything surrounding them would be ultra-romantic. Yes, she smiled. He slipped the ring on her finger and then kissed her on the cheek. Thank you, she said, with a rather sisterly peck on his forehead. Now we won't be lying about the proposal. That's page 12 and 13. Here comes 14, 15. I'm probably going to take us up to page 21 tonight, so you get a good head start into this book. You know what it's about, and I keep you wanting to come back for more because I know this book is going to do that for you. Because when I read it, I just had to know what was going to keep happening. I love books like that make me want to turn the page and know. But enough talking. Page 14. Not much made Paxton Callahan nervous. He was solid and steady as a rock. He could walk right up to a woman in a bar and have her in his arms and dancing in 5 seconds. He could sweet talk his way around a deal when it came to buying cattle for the ranch without blinking an eye. But that afternoon he was sweating bullets when he climbed the 3 stairs onto the porch at the Carey house. On the way over to talk to Matt that afternoon, he practiced several different versions of what he would say. But now none of them sounded right or even plausible in his head. He raised his hand to knock on the door. Matt swung it open. "Come on in, Pax." Matt stood to one side. Paxton wiped his feet and stepped out into the blistering heat into the cool foyer. He removed his cowboy hat and ran his fingers through the dark brown hair. "This humidity is a killer, ain't it?" Matt said as he led the way into the living room. "Never seen it this damn hot in May. I hate to think about what it'll be like in July, but then—" He stopped talking and sat down in the recliner. "Have a seat. Want a beer or sweet tea or something?" "Elena told me, sir." Pax sat down on the end of the sofa and laid his hat on the end of the table. "I'm so sorry. If you need anything at all, call me and I'll come running, and I'll pass on the beer for right now." "Thank you, son," Matt sighed. "I'm glad y'all have moved the wedding up. Getting prepared for the big day will keep Elena so busy she won't have time to worry." Pax cleared his throat. No matter what he said or how he said it, the next words out of his mouth weren't going to be easy. "I really came to ask for your blessing on our marriage." He spit the words out so nervously that he was sure that Matt would figure something was up. Most fathers would ask a future son-in-law to take care of their daughter. "Elena doesn't need that from you." Matt's expression was very serious. "She can take care of herself in this ranch. What she needs in you is to love her, respect her, stand beside her until death do you part, like the wedding's vows say. You think you can do that?" Pax nodded slowly as he tried to figure out a way to agree to the terms without being a big ugly lie. To love and respect her and stand beside her he could do, but that until death do you part kind of thing was throwing butcher knives at his heart. Then he realized that it would be death that parted them. Maybe not his death or Elena's death, but Matt passing on. "I can do that," he finally said. "I've always respected Elena and loved her. Standing beside her won't be a problem, sir." That's page 14 and 15. We're moving to 16 and 17. "Stop calling me that." Matt shook his fingers at Pax. "You're both got my blessing, and I'd sure like it if you called me Dad. After all, y'all are married." He slid the phone from his shirt pocket and touched the screen. He waited a minute and then said, "Elena, honey, can you come to the house?" Wherever she had put a grin on her, whatever she said put a grin on his face. He ended the call and turned back to Pax. "She'll be here in a few minutes. I want to thank you so much for agreeing to move that date up so I can walk her down the aisle. We're both struggling with this whole thing, Pax. I'm trying to be strong for her, but this sucks." "I can't even imagine," Pax said, "but like I said before, I'm here for you both. All either of you have to do is pick up the phone and call me." "Thank God for that," Matt said. "Knowing she won't be alone will make it easier to go when I have to leave." Not knowing what to say, Pax just nodded. "I don't want you kids to worry about a thing. I'll take care of the whole wedding so you can enjoy that short engagement. I've already called the preacher and got the date on the church calendar. That's one thing y'all don't have to worry about." "That's great," Pax said with a smile, but thoughts circled in his head like buzzards flying over a dead bull out in the pasture. How fast would word get around? The preacher would have told Trudy Mason, the church secretary, to put the date on the calendar. Then she would tell her son, Billy Ray, who worked at the Callahan Ranch for several summers while he was in high school. Pax hoped he had a chance to tell Maverick and their grandmother the news before they heard the news through the grapevine. Elena arrived before either Matt or Pax could continue their conversation. She removed a pair of work gloves, nodded toward her father, and crossed the room to kiss Pax on the cheek. "I've given you two my blessing," Matt inhaled deeply, "and I want you to respect Pax in this relationship and not be as bull-headed as you usually are." Elena sat down on the arm of the sofa and slung her arm around Pax's shoulder. "I'll do my best, Daddy." Pax had danced with Elena at the Wild Cowboy Saloon more than once. Hell, they'd been dancing around each other for years, and his heart had never skipped a beat one time, except in elementary school when he literally ran from her and got winded. But maybe it was the fact that she was wearing an engagement ring. But something was definitely different now. Her touch had caused a stir deep down inside his heart like nothing ever had done before. He sensed that he should do something, so he laid a hand on her knee. "We both will, darling." He smiled up at her, hoping it was enough to convince Matt that he was serious. "Let's all go have that cold beer," Elena said. "Then I'll get changed and get ready for our date to celebrate us telling the world. The way this town likes to gossip, I'm surprised that we weren't found out months ago." Date? They hadn't even talked about a date or a celebration. "I'll skip the beer and be back in a half an hour to pick you up." Pax stood up and gave her a quick peck on the lips. That almost breathless in his heart got even stronger. "Better make it an hour. Where did we decide to go?" She raised an eyebrow. "It's a surprise," he said. "Wear something nice. I guarantee it's going to be better than a hamburger joint." That's page 1617. Here comes 1819. "Aw, shucks," she played along. "I had my heart set on a double meat and cheese from the Burger Palace." "I remember when Joy and I got engaged," Matt said. "We went to the Silver Dove in Amarillo to celebrate. I actually got down on one knee in that restaurant and gave her the ring. I took her back there to celebrate every one of our anniversaries. I've gone back every year since she passed away on our anniversary for so many memories." A single tear left a silver streak down Elena's cheek. "Daddy, we don't have to go out tonight. We can stay right here, and the three of us can have supper together. It's the first day that—" She couldn't finish the sentence. "No way," Matt declared. "This is an important night for the two of you. Go make memories that will last as long as mine has. Besides, you both have my word that you'd let me live a normal life as possible, and now I'm asking that neither of you smother me." "That's a tall request," Pax said. "I'd rather live for the moment than worry about the end," he said. "Then that's what we'll do. Besides, don't you have a poker game tonight with your buddies?" Elena reminded him. "It is Wednesday, after all." "Yeah, we're playing cards over at Carlton's tonight." "They're your closest friends, Daddy. Are you going to tell them?" "Nope, and neither are any of you. We're going to spend our time planning a wedding, not a damn funeral," Matt answered. "Now, Elena, you go on upstairs and make yourself presentable. Pax, you do whatever you need to do to make sure that you take my baby girl to a nice place, and I'm going to go to Clayton's. We've got things to do, so let's get after 'em." "Nothing has curbed your bossiness," Elena smarted off. "That's my girl," Matt chuckled. "That's what I wanted to hear and see. We've had our time for crying. Now let's do what the song says. Let's live like we were dying." "That was my buddy Tag Baker's favorite song for a long time," Pax said. "Yep, and it's a good one." Matt stood up and held out a hand toward Pax. "Welcome to the family." "Thank you, sir." Pax had panicked when Elena first told him her plans, but things had gone more smoothly than he could have imagined. 1 month out of his entire life wasn't so long, and God only knew what a wonderful neighbor Matt had been. Matt had been there to help Pax and Mav out of plenty of scraps. He owed the man, and Matt deserved to rest in peace. Pax settled in his hat on his head. "I'll be back in an hour." Elena slipped her hand into his and walked out into the porch. Her hand fit as if it had been formed especially for him. "Thank you so much again." "Hey, that's enough thanks." He gave her a hug because she looked like she needed one. She'd known about her father's diagnosis for less than a day. The real sorrow hadn't even had time to settle into her heart and soul. "You'd do the same for me if it was ma'am, and if it was in Matt's boots. Besides, if it was real, you wouldn't thank me all the time." "All right, then." She hugged him. "Are we really going somewhere fancy, or can I wear jeans?" "Put on your prettiest dress, darling," he said. "I'm taking you out for a celebration." He waved from the window of his truck when he got inside, and then quickly rolled up the window and turned out the air conditioning. He got a call from Maverick about the time he pulled into the driveway at the ranch. He figured his brother had already heard the news, and Pax dreaded answering the phone, but he finally hit accept icon. "How mad are you?" he asked. That's page 1819. Here comes 20. And like I said, we're stopping on 21. "About what?" Maverick said. "Bridget and I are here with Ma'am. We got done at the lawyer's a little early, so we stopped by, and then we're going to have supper before we come on home." "Hello, Pax," his grandmother said. "You're on speaker." Bridget's Irish accent had faded a little bit in 5 months. She'd been in the States, but not a lot. "You've got me, Maverick, Ma'am, and Lalia." "Well, y'all only have me, and I've got some big news," Pax said. You got the old tractor fixed and we've been working on it? Maverick said. Why did you think Mav was mad at you? Mam asked. I asked Elena to marry me, and she said yes. He spit it all out at once so they could ask another question. We've been kind of secretly dating since I've been home, and bull crap, Maverick cut him off. That's the biggest crock of crap I've heard out of you. Last week you couldn't wait to get out to the wild cowboy to blow off steam. Elena was there too. Pax wasn't lying. Elena had been there, and he had avoided her all evening. I'm not a bit surprised, Mam said. Why, y'all have been both fought off that attraction between the two of you since you've been teenagers. I don't know why it took you so long to admit it. I'm not surprised either, Bridget said. When you're all in the room together, I can feel that heat between y'all. I still don't believe it, Maverick said. You're either yanking my chain or you lost your mind. I gave her an engagement ring today. I went over to ask Matt for his blessing this afternoon. Elaine and I are about to go out to celebrate this evening. Pax heard another phone ringing in the background. Hello, Trudy, Mam said. Pax rolled his eyes toward the ceiling. Thank you, God, he mouthed. Yes, we've already heard. Pax told us all about it. And yes, ma'am, I'm all for having the wedding shower at the church sometime this month. Let me know when you guys need me to do. Bye now, Mam said. Okay, I'm back. I guess you heard me talking to Trudy. Yes, I did. Matt told me that he called the church and put the date on the calendar, Pax said. I'll believe it when I hear the preacher pronounce you man and wife, Maverick said. I don't know what you and Elena have going, but you'd have told me if you were dating her. Like you had told him all about me, right? Bridget asked. That was different, Maverick said. And on that note, I'm going to go get ready for my celebration date with Elena tonight. See y'all at breakfast, and I'll be up for a visit soon. Ma'am, bye. He ended the call. Page 21. Now, I say I'm going to stop there, but I'm trying to figure out where I started in again, marking the page. Well, we might as well go to chapter 3. It's only 2 more pages. When Pax and Maverick inherited the Callahan Ranch, their mam's dog and cat came right along the house. Mam had named the dog Ducky because he had short legs, and she said he waddled when he walked. To Pax, he looked like a cross between a Catahoula and a dachshund with a lot of pure mutt thrown in. Dolly was named after Dolly Parton, and when she meowed, it was kind of it kind of did sound like she was singing. Dolly was waiting on the porch and made a beeline inside the house as soon as Pax opened the door. He touched noses with Dolly, who was sleeping in front of the old cold fireplace, and then headed over to the rug under the coffee table. Guess what, Pax said. I'm getting married in about 4.5 weeks. Can you believe that? I damn sure can't. The dog barked, the cat meowed pitifully, and Pax's phone rang again. Hello, Billy Ray. He said, Mom just told me the news and wanted to congratulate you, Billy Ray said. Pax had known Billy Ray for ages. If Mav weren't already Pax's best friend, Billy Ray would have been close. Thanks, I'm still a bit shocked myself. Well, I'm a little jealous, Billy Ray continued. I've always had a crush on Elena, and when I was a little kid, I even planned our wedding. I got to admit, y'all sure did a fine job of keeping a secret. Pax moved down the hall to the bedroom. We didn't want to go public with the news because we lived so close together. What if we'd broken up? Then it would have been awkward for our families. Well, now it all makes perfect sense why she rejected me, Billy Ray chuckled. Call me if you need anything. Mama's already planning a wedding shower. Thanks, Pax said again. Be seeing you around, Billy Ray said, and ended the call with a goodbye. Pax tossed the phone on the bed and stripped out of his clothing. He shoved his legs down into his jeans when the phone rang again. When he saw Hud's face pop on the screen, he groaned. Surely to God, the news hadn't gotten halfway across the state already. That's 20, 21, 22. Here's 23 and 24. Hey, what's going on in Sunset? He asked. Congratulations, Hud said. I knew that if you chased Elena long enough, you'd catch her. How did you find out so fast? We only told her dad today, Pax asked. Billy Ray called me, Hud replied. Why didn't you tell me? I was going to tell you all first, but Matt got excited and reserved the date at the church before Elena and I could tell our families and personal friends. Damn Billy Ray anyway. He's a bigger gossiper than his mama. It was amazing how fast Pax was falling into the part of Elena's fiancé. Always has been. They're good people, but they do come to light to spread the news. Hud chuckled again. How come the wedding is so quick? I figured Elena would be one of that wanted a big church thing with everyone in Daisy invited. Elena, you must not really know her. She wanted us to elope in Las Vegas. He made a mental note to tell her that bit of information. Her father made her promise to at least have a small ceremony and reception right here in Daisy. June 6th, right? Hud asked. I've got the pen in my hand, and you know the rule. Remember the rule. If it's on the calendar in the ranch house, it's written and done. Start writing, Pax replied, surprised that he wasn't stammering, not even a little bit. I'll see you in a month. Wouldn't miss it for the world. Now gotta go tell Tag and all the folks on the Longhorn Canyon. They're gonna be shocked as I was. Bye now. The screen went dark and Dolly came wandering into the room. She jumped on the bed and started purring. Pax stopped when he was doing long enough to pet her. When I woke up this morning, I had no idea I'd be getting married in a month, but I couldn't turn Elena down. Who knows? Maybe by being around her so much, I'll get over this infatuation that I've had for her since I was a kid. The cat looked up at him and meowed. I know it's crazy as hell, and it sure doesn't go along with my plans. The cat meowed again. My dream was to have my own house, build it, and ready for a bride before that time came. Maybe I'd even have enough money in the bank for a decent little honeymoon. Until then, I'd work hard, party hard, and enjoy my life as a free-willing cowboy. Dolly curled up in a ball and shut her eyes. Some friend you are. Pax gripped. It's written in stone now. I just hope we don't get trapped in our own web of lies now. That's 22, 23, and 24. We're stopping there for tonight. You'll want to tune in for some more pages tomorrow night, guaranteed. So, as you can tell, it's going to be better than even a 35 rating. That's how good this book is. See you tomorrow.